we have Dr. Harris Makatsoris, who is a reader in the Department of Mechanical, Aerospace and Civil Engineering. He's got an enviable track record of grants totaling about £8 million, out of which £2 million has gone directly to his group. Welcome to Research Live, Dr. Harris Makatsoris, and a big thanks for accepting our invitation today.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
From the point of view of research in the first stage of the journey, early research, they think probably the first question or concerns is how to choose a funding body. How do you choose these funding bodies or call?
Well, it's kind of a no-brainer because funding councils, they have been set up to support research in specific disciplines. So you have to understand what the remit of these councils is and try to find out where you fit. Okay. Now, nobody stops anyone to apply to other councils. Okay, but again, if you are, let's say, an engineer, let's say for argument, just mechanical engineer, whatever, and any discipline of engineering, right? And you bring a certain skill set that is applicable to a project that could best be supported by the Social Sciences Research Council, okay, ESRC. You might be able to raise research funding from them, but not alone. Okay, you would need somebody with the right kind of expertise who fits the remit of that particular research council. To give you an example, these two networks we found out we got funding for this morning. They are co-funded by ESRC and EPSRC. Okay, and we selected that the people who actually lead these networks come from a social sciences background. Okay, so there was a bit of strategy involved there, because this area, or the areas we applied funding for, they relate to engineering as well as the social sciences. So you have to think strategically. Okay, there has been an instance last year where Brunel colleagues and we applied to BBSRC. Okay, I brought a particular piece of expertise. They brought their expertise in. The PI was somebody who was eligible to apply to BBSRC. It is, eligible in the sense that their background and skills fit the BBSRC remit much better than an engineer. Research councils will not exclude anyone. Okay, they will accept the application, but chances are through the peer review system that you won't be successful unless you have the right expert, and for the right reasons, of course, right? They have a particular remit, and they have to make sure that the applications they fund or the projects they fund, they fit to their remit. Okay, so understanding the research councils is very, very important.
So when you finally selected the right research council, the right call, or you decide to go responsive mode, then you're actually arrived at the challenging task of writing the proposal.
Yeah.
So what are the things that you need to consider when you're actually writing up or starting the writing up process?
Well, again, it depends whether you respond to a managed call or you apply through responsive mode. Okay, to respond to a managed call, it is essential that you understand every single word of the call, okay? And of course understand the research council in general, okay? That's essential. You have to respond to all of those, and of course, there are two other components. One is your aim and objectives, and your case has to make sense, scientific sense, and is not something that has been battered to death, or it's not something that is completely unreasonable. Okay, and it's realistic within the time scale, so that's one on the scientific perspective. And of course, there has to be a realistic plan that supports your case, supports your hypothesis. How are you going to deliver? Okay, so these proposals, I mean, you can, there is a number of ways you got to look at them. Yeah, they're project plans as well as business plans, and the impact statement is kind of that. So they're quite complex to put together. So you have to understand all the components of the application itself as well as the call. And that's for managed calls. For responsive mode, they, at least in principle, they do accept ideas which could be just about anything, right? But again, you have to be aware of the constraints. You have to be aware of the current funded portfolio, the areas the council supports, national importance, okay, and national priorities, how it fits when it comes to engineering, the industrial landscape as well, and of course the kind of impact. Okay, and tick all the other boxes like creating leaders and so on and so forth. So still, even if there isn't a managed call, you have to understand the Research Council itself, what the priorities are, aim and objectives, remit, and the grant portfolio. Okay.
Okay. I think initially you did mention the importance of networking.
Yeah.
I know to experienced researchers that might sound quite an obvious thing to do, but one of the things we gathered talking to early career researchers is the challenge in selecting collaborators. Any advice on that?
Selecting, yeah, it is essential. Okay, collaborations are essential because there isn't a project worth funding these days that cannot involve anyone else. Okay, whether internal to the university or, better still, external to the university. Now, of course, the key criterion, which is kind of a no-brainer, is the expertise, what it is they bring to the table, right? That's important. And that's kind of obvious. But the other one is whether you can work with them, okay? Whether you gel. Because you will be working with them for a period of time, you will be interacting with the investigator as well as their group and their institution very frequently in the life cycle of the project. So you have to make sure that you get along, okay? And you have to understand where it is they're coming from, what is it that they want to get out of the project, okay? So I think, yeah, these are pretty much the key criteria, which is, I mean, what you do to select a team to any kind of project, whether it's funded by a research council, the EU or not. Okay. Of course, the ultimate goal is to have your research funded, because without funding, there isn't any significant piece of research you can do these days, right?
Sure.
So, you know, these criteria would apply to any sort of team building exercise you would ever do.
Regarding just a little follow-up, what are the indicators from your experience that you look for in finding out that you gel with person A, not person B?
The indicators?
Yeah.
Well, you have to spend some time with them. And like I mentioned before, these networking activities are very important because usually, there is different type of networking activities that the research councils organize, right? But the most successful ones are not just the ones where a bunch of people turn up, there's a few presentations, there's a nice coffee, nice lunch, and then everyone off they go. There are activities like those, okay? The ones that are by invitation only, there's a reason why they do that, okay? And if you look at the forms you have to fill in the application form, they ask questions about how do you perform in a team, okay? How you communicate with others, leadership skills, and so on. It depends on what the meeting is about. And the reason for that is, at that stage even, they select the kind of people who can potentially form research groups, okay? So even the selection process, which will help you ultimately, happens already at that stage. That's one. When you are there, there are team building activities that they organize various team building activities in whatever shape, size or form. Okay, and through these activities you can sort of find out. But of course, this is not the only way to meet other people, right? There are plenty of meetings that you should be going to, scientific meetings, presentations, workshops, which are outside of the Research Council's sort of activities. So how do you meet people there? It's just talk to them. You know, you listen to a presentation, you meet them during the coffee break or during lunchtime, you exchange ideas, thoughts, and then you can sort of see. And then you can follow it up. And of course, ultimately, I mean, what you really need, you need to get working with these people as soon as you possibly can. So if there is a managed call, if there is an application, even in responsive mode that you want to prepare, you know, I mean, you can take the risk and say, right, okay, this person would potentially bring X, Y, Z, okay, into the project. So when the writing process starts, we'll start with potentially a brainstorming meeting, yeah, and then the writing itself, and then you kind of assess how they work. And if it doesn't quite work out in one instance, then you will know that maybe these are not the right kind of collaborator or collaborators for you. Okay. And of course, it will work both ways. But my advice is, and the rule that I apply is, try to work with as many people as you possibly can. They will have their own ideas, their own agendas, their own objectives. You have to be accommodating as well if you want to be successful. If you have this sort of attitude that in every single application I'm going to be the PI, I'm going to get the largest share of the grant, and you know, I call the shots because I'm so beautiful, fantastic, and all the rest of it. You will become an outsider in the community very, very quickly, surprisingly quickly. Okay, and then that's it. Your research career is over. Okay. So you have to be accommodating. You have to understand where the other person is coming from, and of course you have your own aim, objectives, and so on. The best thing is to get them aligned, but ultimately what you want is to have your grant and your research funded, okay, and work with as many people as you possibly can.